Welcome. This is The Process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is lesson 103. We're deep in the depths of analysis of ADP versus end of the season results from basically 2015 to 2021. The big question is the predictability of ADP. We're also looking for, sub questions about what are the patterns that have been seen. I think it's important to visualize before your drafts coming probably this summer, kind of where the flow of the draft is, kind of expected to be on average. Okay. And by the way, this end of the season is, of course, after the 17 or 16 or 18 games, whatever it's going to be, or whatever it was, versus the ADP right in the end of August. So I did capture kind of the most, I guess, accurate, which I haven't tested that, but that would be the idea, would be the most accurate ADP that should be at the end of August versus the end of the season. So if you're drafting in June or May, if there are redrafts, just be aware of that. This is a one quarterback situation. It's non-dynasty, just a redraft, because that is kind of what I play a lot of anyway. So that's kind of setting the table. Please go see the previous lessons here to catch up. And I was in the middle, certainly in the last lesson, of looking for patterns, positions drafted per block of ADP picks. So I arbitrarily picked 6 as that slice. So what I mean by 6, it would be 1st through 6th, 7th through 12th, 13th to 18th pick, 19th to 24th, etc., all the way to 150 picks way back. And in the previous lesson, I showed a graph where I had figured out at each sector what were the overall percentages of each position taken at each slice or sliver of the ADP over the last 7 years. And so what you see here are actual data points, okay, for different colors. We're doing quarterbacks, tight ends, running back, and wide receiver. So that's yellow, red, blue, and green, okay. And I understand you can look at the data, but I like to see trend lines. Okay, that helps me visualize kind of the flow of the data. So it's a little bit of a smoothing process, but there's going to be enough variation that I think that's as good as any approach to the actual data. So you see the actual data, which is a composite of 7 years, so it's kind of a 7-year average situation. And we look at the percentage of each position drafted. And so I think it's probably not going to be a surprise if we look at the top 12, first 12 picks, that it is going to be RB centric. And you can see here's wide receivers. And rarely would there be a tight end pick. There it is right there. So if you just follow this all the way through the draft, this is the blue dash line. That's the running backs. They really stand out here. So there's an extreme bias, which is probably not anything earth-shattering, but it's nice to kind of confirm that and see that that trend has been occurring over the years. And so again, this is an average of the average here. And we look at the pattern and of course the percentage of running backs drafted drops almost in half, so near 7.5, 8%, close, probably more 7, to about to 4%. And there's the blue dots here, and here's the pattern. And that stays fairly consistent. A little bit of dropping, and probably on average, we are at the 3%. So the trend is to grab RBs, and then the rest of the draft, there's a steady tick of RBs acquired at that point. But everybody's making the run for the stud RBs. And that's the best that everybody is thinking at that point. And that's, you'll see in the data, that's not necessarily the safest thing. In previous lessons, I have definitely talked about following how good you are at picking, for instance, RBs or wide receivers. So if you're really good at that, then you're probably doing pretty good. If you have that skill, it seems harder to me over the years, to have that skill. I'm not sure I could tell you exactly what variables are really required. I mean, I've got an idea, and I've done principal component analysis in previous lessons. You can certainly take a look at that for the 4 positions. But anyway, that's kind of this trend. So you can see a mad dash for the top 10, 12 RBs, and then a decline of about half, and that stays pretty steady. It drops just a little bit, but really doesn't. It's very, very flat after the 12th pick. And of course, the balance of that, or the kind of the anti-balance, I guess, if there's such a word, would be the wide receivers. So there always is some level of wide receivers that will be selected in the first round. The last few years, it's been in the back half, the 7 through 12. A few have been taken, but before that, there was probably more wide receivers taken than you might have thought. In other words, we've seen the last couple years, and there's this illusion that that's how it's always going to be and has always been, and that's not the case. Certainly RBs have dominated. I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but there have been years where wide receivers have been more prominent and in being drafted in the top 12, the 1 to 6 and 7 to 12 ADP sector. So what we see then at the 3% level, a little bit higher, we see the top RBs at the top positions here, and it's certainly very different if you compare the running backs. So almost half of the running backs on average, and like I said, the last couple years, it's been all RBs in certainly the top 6. So what happens after that? Well, obviously there's going to be a kind of reaction to taking so few wide receivers, and what we're seeing with the greens line is a movement up close to 5% at the 13 to 18, and that is kind of, if you look at it right here, it's close to 4.5 to 5% in the 13th, all the way down to what, the 42nd, 48th. So it was at the fourth round. So the second through the fourth round, we're going to be getting a lot of wide receivers versus the running backs are going to be lower by about 1% or so. So there's going to be a little bit more dominance here at that point. There does seem to be at the 31st to the 36th, the running backs do dominate. And I did show the dominant position across these slices if you want to look in the previous lesson. So there's the trend. It peaks up in here close to 5%, and it drops to near RB levels at 4, 3.5, and it goes back up to 4, so it does increase a little bit and then drops down. So we see kind of multi-peaks, a multi-peak for WRs from second to fourth round, and about 91st pick to about the 126th pick, there's this second peak, and we just don't see that with the running backs. There's more of a steady picking up of those players versus that position. So clearly the pattern is different from RB versus WR, and you just need to kind of get a sense that this is going to occur, and you need to kind of plan where your picks are going to be, especially at these peak times here, right? At these peak times, what's your plan? Okay, so there is, and I guess, and well, I don't know if I guess, but certainly you should, and I compare RB to WRs. Okay, I just, given these patterns, that seems to be reasonable. Most redraft leagues, you're doing at least 2 and 2. Sometimes, depending on the number of flex positions, some leagues are doing 2, 2, and 1 flex, 2, 2, and 2 flexes. That kind of thing. So it's important to definitely spend a lot of time understanding patterns and that can be expected in a draft. On the other hand, the quarterback and tight end should be looked at kind of together, because that or those positions are going to be taken in fewer numbers in a one quarterback league. Certainly not a super flex, but we're just talking here. And unless it's a tight end premium league, probably tight ends are not, you're not stockpiling those at best. Depending on the bench size, probably 2 and 2. People grab maybe 2 QBs and 2 tight ends, kind of that bye-week backup concept. A lot of people do that. Some people forego that and just grab 1 quarterback and 1 tight end and then stockpile RBs and WRs. That is a viable strategy. That is, depending on the league type, I tend to do that in certain types of leagues. In tight end premium leagues, I don't do that because there is a run on tight ends. People start carrying 4 tight ends in a premium league kind of thing. In one quarterback, though, I have no problem just grabbing one if it's a high end quarterback. Okay, and there is the streaming concept that I know people have talked about. If you don't know the streaming concept, it's you grab, say, two quarterbacks, and based on their strength of schedule, you play, you prediction, the strength of schedule predicts that you will play one over the other. It may change because that's based on last year's defensive data. So when you're drafting, you're kind of assuming things are going to stay the same, and that's probably a bad assumption. But you should, if you're going to do that, try to stream, then you need to decide how you're going to play that as well. So right away, we've talked all these different situations, league types, bench spaces, and that's clearly going to affect drafts and patterns. So when you do mock draft kind of situations, it is important to understand the mock draft in terms of your league's ways that people behave. In certain leagues, certain situations in your when you're getting ready to draft, they already have ADPs for you that shows you what has gone on before. So what I do is scrape that data, put it into a spreadsheet, and look at patterns under those conditions. That is very informative, and I probably, now that I hear myself saying that, I really hadn't planned on that. I hope I remember in my other lessons, but in case I forget, if you want that, I can do some, show you how I approach, kind of that pre-draft situation. I probably need to show that, but how I generate patterns. I know I've done that for best ball and redraft using common ADP, but probably not so early in the lessons. So anyway, there's a lot of flexibility, but let's follow quarterbacks, and that's in yellow, and tight ends in the red. And so, again, on occasion, there's going to be a tight end that will make it in the 7th through 12th. I think Kelsey is the one. Maybe back in the old days, Gronk may have been worthy of a pick way back when, maybe before 2015. But it's probably only one. Okay, in a tight end premium, it's probably going to be the top two or three potentially can go really early. Okay, so you need to know the rules of your league. And so if you look at the pattern of tight end, people are grabbing tight ends, the tendency to grab them earlier than quarterbacks. And it looks like the quarterbacks are slower by draft slices, and about the, what is that, 5th round right here. You see how the red and the yellow cross here at this sector slice here. It's 55th through 60th right here. So they catch up, and then the tight ends are kind of forgotten about, and there's a run on probably at least two quarterbacks. Like I said, some people grab 3 in a one quarterback league. I really think you're wasting space there. Anyway, so quarterbacks are going to be grabbed late. They're probably start appearing, like Mahomes will appear 13th through 18th or 19th through 24th. So early on, you might get one quarterback or two certainly by the coming into the third round. And that's going to start picking up about the fifth or sixth round in here. Okay, so you need to get ready and predict that switch. People are going to become satisfied with their top RBs and WRs, and then they're for sure, if they hadn't grabbed one early, they're going to be using 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round to grab a quarterback, and many have already grabbed one tight end at that point. So there's going to be a grab, and then at the end of the draft, people say, "Oh, I better grab that second or third tight end," and you start seeing about what, the 133rd pick, you start seeing some tight ends, probably the third tight end. So some people are grabbing 3 tight ends. Again, depends on the bench space here and how that is going. So this gives you at least a sense of the overall 7-year view, okay? And again, how I look at this is from a top-down perspective, okay? In other words, I look at the overall patterns and then drop into the each position and then in the league-specific rules and how things are going. So when I'm doing my redraft starting in June, I should know what is going to be predicted. I understand news can break. People can, you'll have, if you draft early, sometimes you're in the middle of draft and somebody gets injured and all of a sudden things are shifted. That happens. That's the good news or the bad news on early redrafts there. Okay, so that's just me pontificating about, and this is about the positions. This is just an overall 7-year average here. Again, it is important to consider the whole draft, not just what am I going to pick, the first couple, or like you chart the first couple picks and then you say, well, I'll just, let the draft tell me what to do. If you're that good, and with your diary that kind of plan works, I like to not necessarily focus on specific players at this point, is more positional. In other words, when is kind of the last shot to grab a tight end one or a quarterback one, that kind of thing. I like to see those benchmarks that kind of tells me what's going on. And if you do that and you kind of keep to that, then you're less likely to be influenced by runs that will start happening. And you can start seeing quarterback tight end runs, okay? And then that makes you nervous if you don't have one. And then you start jumping prematurely where maybe there's still key RBs or WRs out there and you're feeling like, uh-oh, I got to go change my complete plan. And then you're dealing the rest of the draft in a panic situation. And that is not where you want to be. You do not want the other people in the draft to be influencing you that way. So I don't look at the chats. Could care less what people are saying. If people want to comment, man, that pick was goofy or whatever. You sure are picking quarterbacks early, whatever it is. I'm not here to listen to what they're saying. I'm playing my own game, and it is irrelevant what people are doing, and it should be. On the other hand, you still need to think about when you would expect potential quarterback runs to occur, tight end runs to occur. Certainly, running back runs are going to happen first. Okay, that's going to be going on. You're going to face that, especially if you're in the back half, the 12th, 7th through 12th, what do you do? Okay, that's always a conundrum in your draft. What the hell am I going to do? Just would not be influenced by people beforehand because it makes you nervous, okay? Because there's a tendency, oh, I want everybody, and then you get mad when, if you've got your heart set on player A and he's gone, that can mess up your equilibrium, okay? And so some people recommend, and this is not top down. I mean, this is top down, but this is lower, that people do tiers. So it can relieve that stress a little bit if you put players into tiers, if you can, and if that's worked for you. It kind of works for me, especially later in the draft. It's like, oh, so and so just got picked. Instead of worried about that, you're just like, well, great. Now I can go get the next player in my tier, whatever. So you've got to keep your head, got to keep cool about the situation, okay? You drink a beer after the draft's done, folks, okay? Do not party and carry on. And again, I like slow drafts. I like time to marinate on the decision. In my lessons last year, I talked about Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, that book. Okay, I suggest you read that multiple times. I have. And we need time in thinking to bring out the deeper logic, because the part of our thinking is the fast and frugal. It's good for escaping a saber-toothed tiger. It's not good for drafting in fantasy. Okay, it's the knee jerk. It's the, oh, I got to have this now. It's the greed. It's, oh, I want 3 of these or 4 of those, whatever. It can mess you up. So I like to marinate and think and be as objective as I can, and to be slow drafts. And so if you're in a slow draft, there's going to be people that are in a hurry, right? Well, don't get in a damn slow draft, okay? And I usually pick 6 to 8 hour picks, windows. That's fine for me. It gives me plenty of time to marinate. And if it makes people mad that I'm towards the end of the 6 hour average, that is great. Make them all stirred up and make them want to pick too soon and grab things. That's great. That's probably good for me. So it doesn't hurt to do that. Okay, let's see. Should I? I've spent 28 minutes of, and that's professor time here, talking about this one slide. So I think I'm trying to stay closer to 30 minutes on my lesson. So I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to continue this journey. But then I'm going to look at the actual picks by the years 2015 to 21. This is a 7-year average. I'm going to step back and look at year by year in the next lesson 104. So come back for that. I hope 30 minutes, because I can talk for hours, okay? And that's just who I am and what I do. So thanks for listening. This is Dr. John Bush for The Process, Lesson 103, Season 2022. Let's crush this year, okay? It's time to quit clowning around, and let's all chop some wood. Then we can get firing and roast our league mates and crush them like bugs. Come back. Woo woo. This is fun.